not looking good at all. They are frightening and they are quite disturbing. Even for some investors, many investors are getting nervous as to the way things are looking because the outlook is looking rather gloomy. But I believe that if we do the right things, the situation can be redeemed because we are in this situation not only because of the global issues. Of course, we must acknowledge that there are global factors in the current situation. Initially we had a pandemic, which caused quite a number of disruptions to global value chain and depressed commodity prices. Just as we are recovering from that, we have the Russia-Ukraine war or conflict, which again has brought its own disruptions to the global economy. From the point of view of the energy costs and disruption to supply, and from the point of view of food prices. Of course, these are real challenges coming from the external sector. But domestically, there are quite a number of domestic factors which I think if we do the right things, it could make the situation a lot better than what it is. We have issues of insecurity, for instance. The insecurity problem is not a global problem. It's having quite a number of effects on the economy, on investment, and particularly on our agricultural production and food prices, unemployment, and even the perception of the country as an investment destination. So that's something that is peculiar to us at this time. Then we have quite a number of policy distortions and dislocations, which we are also grappling with. That again is a domestic issue. We have the foreign exchange issue, it's largely for now a policy problem. We have elements of trade policy issues. We have some investment climate issues, business facilitation issues, and we have all this problem of oil theft and the effect of that on our oil output, the loss of revenue, and the effect of that on investment in the oil and gas sector. Many investors had left even before this crisis because of left the oil and gas sector because of the insecurity in the oil producing areas, the vandalization of facilities, the pipelines, illegal refineries, oil theft. And so when the government was not living up to its billing, to protect the assets and the lives of investors in that location, many of them had to leave after spending so much money trying to secure themselves. So these are the issues. Some factors are global, and some factors are domestic. And if you want to fix this issue, we should be looking more in the domestic direction, those policy areas that we can fix.
Dr. Yusuf, talking about subsidy, I would really sound like a broken record. We've talked about subsidy times without number, and up till date, we're still not seeing that decision or government not ready to take that decision to take out subsidy because, of course, we know what might follow that decision. But that is part of this recommendation at the moment, particularly as the NNPC becomes a limited liability company. That is what is expected. So if we look at taking this away, and of course, eliminating NNPC's federation-funded projects, we can go on this one after the other. But the big elephant in the cupboard truly is the subsidy saga and, of course, cost of governance. How can we address this too in a way that it won't just hit hard on the masses?
Well, the subsidy issue is a very, very difficult issue to tackle, particularly at a time like this. First, it is easier to tackle the subsidy issue if we have some degree of domestic capacity for petroleum refining. It will be much easier because the vulnerability of the prices to external shocks will have been reduced significantly. Well, here we are, We are not refining. We are 100% dependent on imports. So that means we are very vulnerable, first, to commodity price shocks, that is the price of crude oil globally. Second, to exchange rate shocks, that's the depreciating exchange rate. So if you throw that into the welfare equation of the citizens at this time, if you throw it entirely into it, it will be very difficult for the citizens to be able to withstand it. Because we'll be talking about PMS going for close to maybe 500 naira per liter. So I don't know how any government will be able to withstand that at a time like this. First, because of the current social situation, because of the current level of poverty, and again, because of the political implication and even security implications. Because when you have a situation where the citizens are already on edge, the level of poverty has become so high and so widespread. A lot of citizens are struggling even to survive. A lot of businesses are going under. We already have the components of our energy mix that are already deregulated, and we know what the citizens are feeling with respect to diesel, with respect to kerosene, with respect to aviation fuel, and to some extent, with respect to gas. So these are enough burden already. So that is why I'm saying that, yes, it's good to remove subsidy, but it is easier said than done. If we are going to do anything, I think it's about looking at a strategy to gradually phase it out. But it will be much easier if we get to a situation where we have much lower global oil price. We have had that opportunity in the past, which we missed out on completely. But if we come to a cycle where we have a lower oil price, it will be easier, to deal with this issue. Another opportunity is if we are able to get our refineries up and running, it will be easier to manage those variables. But right now, it's going to be a very difficult thing. And if there's a major implosion or conflagration or riot, even those of us that are saying that they should remove subsidy, nobody will be able to speak again, because we have seen that in the past. We have canvassed, many analysts have canvassed that subsidy should be removed and all of that. When Jonathan tried to remove it, we know what happened. All the proponents of subsidy, everybody was quiet. Not even the governors. Jonathan was left alone to be grappling with the problem of the riots and the protests. So these are the issues. So I think it's something that has to be done, in a very strategic manner. It's not something that you can jump into just like that. And let me also say that, yes, we welcome the intervention of the governors at this time about the way the economy is being managed. But this is just less than 1 year to the end of the administration, and less than 1 year to the end of many of their own tenure. What were they doing all these years? Because they are part of this economy. This problem did not just start today. It didn't start yesterday. We saw it coming. And we have the National Economic Council. What exactly did they discuss there? If they are not discussing very important economic policy issues that is affecting investment, that is affecting employment, and that ultimately will affect their own revenue as governments. I think they should have been doing this long ago. This should have been a routine thing at each of their economic council, that they are able to also be part of the policy process. The economic council should not just be about revenue allocation, FAAC, and all of that. It should be also more about the policy environment that will support private sector investment. It's in their own enlightened self-interest that you have an economy that is growing, that you have a private sector that is prospering, that is doing well, where there is prosperity. then each of them will be able to even get more revenue. Jobs will be able to be created. I mean, jobs will be created in all their various domains. So they have been quiet for too long. But it's better late than never. And I also expect that in each of the sub-nationals, I'm talking of the state governments now, preceding each of the National Economic Council meetings, they should be having engagement with the private sector in their states. The OPS and other private sector players exist in all the states of the Federation. They should be having meetings with them so that they can escalate these issues to the center. Of course, that is not supposed to be a substitute to advocacy by the private sector. But the governors should also be part of this. So I don't get to a point where the economic is almost on the brink before they are now coming out to make recommendations.
True.
Some of their recommendations are good. Some cannot be done immediately. Some are long-term, but some are also not too good. Some of the recommendations are not that realistic. So they need to do a lot more in being part of the economic policy process rather than just sit back and they're coming up at the very late hour when a lot of damage has been done already.
Indeed. Dr. Yusuf, let's look at quoting personnel costs that are for MDAs. Of course, FG MDAs. We know that there was this Orosaye report and there's an updated one that is expected to, I think, save about 1 trillion naira, what I have here. But two things I want us to look at. That's what you think about that, if that would happen. And of course, privatizing of non-performing assets. This has also been on for some time. Economists and analysts have been saying government should let go of some of these assets and make some money from it. What do you make from this two submissions?
I think those submissions are very good, at least to a large extent. But again, charity must begin at home. Now they are making recommendations about what the federal government should do. What are they doing at their own levels or in their own states? Because some of the things that they are pointing out to the federal government to do, many of them also need to do it in their own states. Part of the challenges that many of the states have with their own fiscal sustainability is an overbloated workforce. Their bureaucracy, whether they are talking of the state level or the local government level, it's even worse in the local governments. Sometimes you have people on the payroll that never even show up at all at the local government headquarters for anything or any local government office. So we have the same problem at the state level. So let charity begin at home. That is not to diminish the importance of these recommendations, but they should also individually be telling us what are they also doing in their states. Of course, the Orosaye report and all these issues about cost of governance, they are fantastic ideas, because these are issues that quite a number of commentators have been talking about in order to ensure the sustainability of this economy and even of governance generally. Only a few states were able to take some very bold steps, and I think Kaduna State is one good example. Not many other states have been able to do that. So at the federal level, the problem exists, of course. There's a need to do that, but again, because of the social consequences of some of these actions, it's something that also needs to be done very carefully. That is why I like the idea of the incentives that will be put on the table to encourage people to voluntarily retire. That is my understanding of what the recommendation is saying about people who are about 50 and above. I don't think they are saying that they should sack people that are 50 and above. I don't think that is what they meant. I think what was meant there is to put incentives on the table for people to take advantage of that and voluntarily exit from the service. That is also done in the private sector. Sometimes if you want to downsize, rather than just be cutting people off and saying they should go, you can use incentives and give some generous packages, exit packages. And that may encourage some people to leave. So that again, I think for me is a good idea. Then about assets, there are so many abandoned projects, so many idle assets. Again, this is not peculiar to the federal. It's also, we have many states that have all sorts of abandoned projects, idle assets all over the place. So that again, we need to see how we can get value from them. In 2021, the Quantity Surveyors Institute did a study and came up with the fact that the federal government has about, or the governments generally have about 56,000 abandoned projects all over the country. And it was valued at 12 trillion naira. That was in 2021. And many of those projects are still all over the country. And some of those real estate assets are in very prime locations. We have quite a number of examples here, even in Lagos, in central business districts. You know the value of land in those locations. They are federal government properties. They have been abandoned. Miscreants and hoodlums have taken them over, constituting a nuisance even to the entire environment. So we have all those things littered across the country. I'm aware that the Bureau of Public Enterprises is trying to collect all these assets. But again, we need to ensure that these things are done much more speedily. So we can do a lot with the assets that we have. And Dr. Teriba has been leading this campaign about how we can make better use of our assets to raise revenue. You know, I think the more we listen to such interventions, the better. Then there was this recommendation about increasing VAT. Now, we just increased VAT, and I don't think it's more than a year or something slightly more than that, to 7.5. It's too early now to be talking about increasing VAT again. I mean, that is too soon. And in any case, we know the pressure that businesses and individuals are going through at this time. Of course, in the long term, medium to long term, we can be talking of a review, but we should allow the economy and investors to have some breathing space first before we begin to talk about increasing the VAT. Then there was this suggestion that they should be taxing anybody less than 30,000. All of them, whether they're employed or not, they should pay 100 naira. I mean, where is that coming from? What kind of taxation is that? The essence of taxation is to take from those who have to support those who do not have. That is the basic principle, redistribution of income. Why will you be taxing somebody who is earning 30,000? That's less than $50 a month. I mean, what kind of recommendation is that? So there are some of those recommendations that actually I don't quite agree with, and the fact that I should be taxing people who are earning 30,000 and below, whether they're employed or unemployed. Then those who are earning 30,000 and above should be taxed at a flat rate of 3%. I don't think that should fly. I think if we talk to tax experts, they will tell us how well to optimize revenue from taxation. In many economies, almost 80% of their tax revenue comes from about 20% of the population. I mean, that's what we call the Pareto principle. Focus on the significant few that can give you the best result that you have. Not to be disturbing the poor masses or all these artisans and all these who are selling tomato and pepper that you want to collect revenue and all of it. It's not right. So I have my reservations with some of those things. So those are my views about some of the recommendations that have been made.
Indeed, it's an interesting conversation, and I think that we need to pick all of these recommendations one after the other, just like we've done. Maybe we'll have a part 2 of this discussion. For now, this is much time can take. Interesting conversation as usual with Dr. Muda Yusuf, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, and we all know as immediate past Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you so much, Doc. Hope to see you on the other side.
Thank you, Tolu. Thank you.